LFC Daytrippers, brought to you by bookmakers.com.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. I'm Gavin. With me tonight, I have got Keith and the return of Phil. Phil's returning for this one-off special. Listen, there's been loads of transfer stuff going on. Liverpool have signed 2 players. They're looking at a couple more. But we thought we'd step away from it tonight, and we look at one of our all-time great players in a lot of people's minds, and it is Luis Suarez, El Pistolero, as he's known to by his friends. We're going to do it in blocks tonight. We're going to look at your first thoughts on Luis Suarez, where you first seen him. We're going to look at the controversies. We're going to look at the greatness. And then we're going to talk about where he ranks in alongside other number 9s in the game. Phil, great to see you. How are you?
Great to see you, Gav.
You haven't killed yourself on that bike yet?
Not yet. Myself and Steve were out last night cycling around Wicklow, as we do. Normally of a Saturday night, but now it's of a Monday night. And Ray Dicko, I don't know, does Ray still do the pods? Or does he
Ray still does the pods. He takes most of the summer off.
That's all right, because I can understand that, because I'm after fixing Ray's bike, and Ray is joining the gang as well. So we're setting up a small...
Oh, I seen this thing today, right? And you sent me a picture saying, I fixed Ray's bike. And immediately I thought Ray Brady, and I was like, Ray Brady's cycling around the mountains now as well, which would have been amazing. But I actually think it's more amazing that it's Ray Dicko.
Yeah. So it's over.
Ray Dicko looks like the sort of fellow who's never been on a bike.
Well, when I got the bike, it looked like he'd been on the bike once and fell off it, like, to be fair, right? So,
did you get the Lycra and all?
Yeah, it's full on Lycra, Keith. It's like there's no holding back. It's like the Tour de France if it was like a load of middle-aged lads who are like can't go very fast. But no, to be fair to Steve-O, he's definitely picked up. He went. I got him under an hour for his first 20. It was the first time he did 20k in under an hour since we started. So
that's great for Steve-O.
Yeah, well, to be fair to him, when we started off, he was doing about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour 25, and now he's down to under an hour. And he's doing that race with me down in Lochderg in September.
Lochderg up north?
No, Lochderg is on the border. Well, it's down so it's between Clare and Tipperary.
What's the one up north? All right. Anyway, come here. Before we move on, I'm just thinking there. Do you remember years ago? And we got on to Suarez now, right? But you remember years ago, when the things you used to be able to buy for your bike, there were indicators for your bike.
Yep.
And you had to stick them on the back, and you could click the button, and it'll tell you you're going right and left.
Yeah.
They were mad, weren't they?
Well, I've got a step further for you, Gav, because I tend to drift off into these weird holes, right? So you can now get a helmet, right?
Yeah.
That has an indicator light in the back of your helmet, right?
Yeah.
And you have the same way. You have a button on the front on the handlebars of your bike.
Yeah.
Left and right, so you can indicate left and right with your helmet.
Your helmet.
And there's one at the front as well. Andy texted me today and he said he's at the start and taking up the bike as well. So he's wondering can he join. So we're thinking of getting a Daytrippers cycling club jersey, and for you it could be a great money spinner. A great money spinner, because like cycling gear is mad expensive. You could sell like a cycling top for €150 a go. Right. Think about it.
I'll leave that to you. I'm willing to let you run this and money spin off it. I have enough going on without trying to sell Lycra to people.
Can I get a GoPro camera and take us on a cycle with me?
Yeah, I'll put it live on the channel.
Mountains. Yeah, up the mountains.
Okay. We'd be shut down fairly quickly, but listen, let's
I'll
have
strap
a go
it to my head. I'll strap
Right.
them.
Nice.
Okay. But that's what you should do with GoPros, isn't it? You put it on your head. Yeah.
Get
Anyway,
one like your man that laughs at the trains. You know that fella that the trains go by and he gets all super excited. Get one of them for Phil dangling off his head on the
that's Andy
bike.
when he sees that's Andy when he sees the planes landing at Dublin Airport. In fairness,
Yeah, that's true.
To be fair, I've taken a couple of falls lately, so they would have been excited when I fell down the side of a mountain 2 weeks ago. So it was good crack.
Kev O'Sullivan says, and it's a good show. He says, "Can you imagine Phil's Amazon suggestion list? I'd say it's off the fucking wall." And
the AliExpress one is better.
I'd say his Netflix one is mad as well because the stuff he watches, you might like this. Loch Ness is the one up north. Gav says O'Shane McGlinchey. Thanks, O'Shane. Keith, how are you? Donned in your Gremio top for the
Coincidence, Gav. Coincidence.
My
Just a
arse. I say you're on
coincidence.
this on Sunday.
Just happened to have it on there today when we're doing a Luis Suarez show. No, I'm great. I'm intrigued by the idea of them indicators on a helmet for the bikes because I actually nearly killed a cyclist yesterday because she was cycling, right? And what does my head in with them is you're in a lane to go left and there's a lane to go straight and all the bike wankers congregate in the turning lane when they're going to go straight. So this little L one was in front of me. Now, she wasn't one of the Phil gang with the lycra or anything on, but I was after having a bit of a run
Just
in
an
with a few
going
of
back
them.
right shopping.
She was just on her bike, right? But I had a run in with a few of the lycra brigade, a few traffic lights before this. So maybe I have the problem and it's not the cyclists. But this little L one was in front of me, and again, she was going, I thought she was in the turning lane again, and she put her hand up to indicate, and that must mean going straight ahead. I don't know what the bleeding rules of the road are, but I'm like, what the fuck is she putting her finger up to me for? I was getting a bit annoyed at the poor little woman, and I started beeping at her and all. She had a little wobble on the bike. Turns out she's just saying she was going straight ahead. But the little hat indicators would have been handy for me then on that day, because like I went through a lot of road rage with them. I'm usually okay with them. I'm usually tolerate them a bit, but yesterday had a bad day, so I like the idea of them wearing the helmets with indicators on.
And definitely wearing
all of them should be mandatory.
Mandatory indicators on their helmets.
Yeah.
Anyway,
mandatory indicators, phenomenal.
On their helmets.
I'm a helmet.
Okay.
And before we move off this topic,
right? Okay.
Are they extra big helmets to accommodate the wires and all?
Do you know what would be brilliant
like,
if it was
huge things?
No, do you know, like if it was a helmet, a standard helmet, right? But the indicator shape was in the plastic, off the side of them. So it was like, the right and left arrow were like not part of the helmet. They stuck out of the helmet.
They stuck out like and they just came out like just
they just like when they're making the mold for the helmet, right? Instead of it just being that roundy helmet, they should have the left and right in it, and then the LED is in it. So it's really stuck out from the helmet. Maybe anyone watching, any helmet makers out there, listen, you can have the idea. We're not looking for royalties off it.
Remember why you say the first.
Keith, anything else on helmets and bikes before we move on?
No.
It's in my suggestion list on Amazon if you want it. It's a live all unisex bike smart bike thing, helmet.
Right.
Helmet with
there you go.
indicators.
Look her up. And people tuning in for the first time, wanting to hear about Luis Suarez, have now had 8 minutes of us talking about helmets and indicators. Wow. We're going to absolutely fly through the subscribers tonight, I'd say.
Welcome to the Daytrippers.
Yeah. This is where all the good work over the last couple of weeks just falls on its arse. Anyway, Luis Suarez, an unbelievable footballer. I still have me doubts over this thing where he's telling Gremio his ankle's not in the best, and he has to give up.
Spoof.
Right,
he's going into Miami. He's going into Miami.
Yes, I think he's going to tell Gremio, lads, I'm not up for this, and then he's going to go into Miami and just say, I got some horse placenta from Barcelona there, and I'm brand new now, 30 million a year. Me and Messi are going to have a crack for 2 or 3 years, but we're going to have to go on the pretense that Luis Suarez is giving up, right? Just for this show alone. Luis Suarez, Nacional, goes to Groningen, onto Ajax, onto Liverpool, onto Barcelona, onto Atletico, onto Nacional again, and now I'm finishing with Gremio. 7 clubs, I think, altogether. But Keith, your earliest memory of Luis Suarez, is it when he signs for Liverpool? I doubt it is, because you're a South American. You love the South American gear.
Yeah, I do love South American stuff, and Suarez was on my radar, sort of when he was at Ajax, and it was more so because his name was Luis Suarez, and there was an old Spanish player called Luis Suarez, played for Barcelona and Inter in the 60s. So the name, it was like, okay, intrigued. And obviously I love South American football, and I love South American players. So you look into this fella and you'd see at Ajax he sort of blows up and he's banging in goals. But I think people are always sceptical of the Eredivisie over the years, you know, especially when they come to the Premier League. You see players like Afonso Alves who scored 120 goals a year over there and can't kick fucking snow off a rope. So you're looking at him, but he's doing good numbers. But the first memory, I think, is the 2010 World Cup. It's the 2010 World Cup, it is the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
And he puts himself on the world stage as the pantomime villain, and it's one of the best things I've ever seen in football. And I don't think it very rarely will be very hard to beat what he done in the World Cup against Ghana. It was one of the highlights of the World Cup ever for me. Not the people of Africa don't always agree with that.
You all right, Keith? Oh, Keith just stopped talking. He's frozen.
Keith was saying the people of Africa mightn't agree with him there, which is fair enough. But if he's talking about the save, Keith, are you back with us? I was going to just interject there.
No, I reckon Keith's on a go slow there, and he'll have to drop out. There he goes, and he'll be back in. So go on, keep going.
So I'll take over, and he can correct me if I'm wrong here. But I think the first memorable moment from Suarez in most people's memories is the save in the 2010 World Cup against Ghana in the second round, the knockout stages.
Is it a quarter-final?
Quarter-final.
It's a quarter-final. What drives me insane, though, is that, again, it's these moments that overshadow all of Suarez's career when people think about him, right? Because he's had an incredible World Cup up until this moment as well. Yeah. So he's been the driving force in that Uruguayan team. It's spearheaded by a young Cavani, an experienced Forlan, and you have this lad who's just ascending to being a great in world football in real terms of what's going on. And everyone forgets what he's done up until now. And the worst thing that happens for Uruguay, in one sense, is that he makes the save, right? And the worst thing is that the first fella doesn't make the save. I keep going back to this, right? He's not the only person who tries to save the shot, right? If you look carefully, the defender goes first to save it. If the defender saves it, the same outcome happens. Your man blasts it over the bar. But they have Suarez in the semi-final. They don't have Suarez in the semi-final. So ultimately, he causes his own fall down in terms of Uruguay and what they do. But yeah, I think it's the first standout moment of Luis Suarez in sort of the global memory and in terms of his impact on world football. And it's a shame because his World Cup in 2010 is absolutely smashing. So it's fantastic. But anyway, Keith, I was just interjecting, trying to keep this going while we're going. So
yeah.
Go on, keep
No. It sums up. You know what I mean? Like it was Suarez that's when he puts himself on the scene, and I think we've all sort of become accustomed to that Uruguay team getting old and stale over the years with Cavani, with Suarez, with Diego Godin. You know, all these players. They were a great team, but back then they were an exciting team, as Phil touched on. You know, and they had got players. Forlan, they had others, and Suarez was just that little bit of madness. Now, look, people get annoyed when you talk about the Ghana thing that he cheated or whatever, but to me it showed somebody, the old saying, you know, you'd plug out your life support machine to charge his phone. Didn't give a bollocks. The fella did not care. He was the ultimate sort of win at all costs.
He's the only player I've seen claim a penalty when a goalkeeper kicked up a ball.
Yeah. He's a madman. He's a madman. And I was genuine about that as well. Like.
Yeah.
But absolutely that was the
insane.
first time for me. That was the first time for me when he comes onto the scene and he's doing that. And you're looking at him. And he's distinctive looking because of his teeth. And he's got that little feral look about him. You know what I mean? He's a little ratty little.
He has a rat look off him. He does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. But you're looking at him playing, and there's certain players that you always get drawn to. Well, different people get drawn to different types of players, you know. But he was the type of player that I got drawn to. He's a little pest, and he was the sort of, you know, dirty little South American stereotype, and I was all over this. So for me, from that moment on, I'm like, right, where's this fella going? And then when he does eventually come to Liverpool, I was shocked that we even got him. But yeah, Suarez, that was the first one for me where he comes on the scene, but absolute head case. And from early days, you know, he's a head case, you know what I mean?
Phil, is that your earliest memory of him?
No, mine is slightly earlier. And the reason for it is I was very deep in sort of football at that stage. So I was sort of would have been coming towards the end of playing, or probably would just finished. So I was mad into just sort of looking at players and sort of being into, a bit of coaching and all that type of stuff. So, just sort of one of my mates as well, his brother was involved in the football manager games. So he would have like lists of fellas and say, look, you should keep an eye on this fella, you should keep an eye on that fella, right? So he was one of the compilers for the game in terms of what was going on. So we'd start to get the heads up about these young fellas coming through, or that looked like they were going to be decent players, before. Yeah. And you have to remember, 2009, 2010, you don't have the same sort of wall-to-wall video coverage of these fellas that are playing in Holland in whatever it is. It was there, but it was much harder to get, and YouTube was really only taking off at that point. So I remember just being told, you could keep an eye on this fella, and I was thinking to myself, this is another one of, what was your man's name that went to Chelsea who scored like 100 goals in 10 matches in Holland? And Kesman, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like I thought, like this is another one of these lads. And we'd signed Dirk Kuyt, and I was sort of, after we signed Kuyt, I was like, I'm not mad. I'm not sure about can these fellas translate to actually scoring goals at any other league bar the Dutch league. But there was the Classian
being the one that was the outlier.
Yeah, it was the outlier that was there. But in reality, that's what it was. So I just remember being told about it, looking at him, thinking, yeah, he's got loads of goals. Then he went to the World Cup, and then the incident happened. But I was paying attention to him before as I said to you, that's the reason, because I just remember watching the Uruguay in those stages, and there's a little baldy fella playing in midfield as well. That was sort of the main reason I was looking at them. I can't remember. He was a little defensive midfielder, and at that stage, had Mascherano headed off, and we were sort of had a void of a midfield at that stage in terms of what it was. The whole midfield had been picked apart. We'd had Alonso, Mascherano, and Gerrard up until that. We were going through the Roy Hodgson years, and we had nobody, and I was sort of looking at what was going on. And then you just started watching these lads playing up front, and you're just there going, "Your man's pretty good. Look at him." Look, he runs around a lot, and he does things, you're not expecting. How does the ball hit his shin and not go like 90 miles away from him? This fella is decent, and that's where it is. And obviously, then the handball brings him into the yoke. And then I started paying a bit more attention to him, right? Which will probably when we get into the controversies, but I
was gonna go to next of him signing for Liverpool, but there's controversy with Luis Suarez before he gets to Liverpool. Is it an incident at Groningen or Ajax?
It's at Ajax. Well, it's both, because if you start reading up there, and before he goes to Ajax, he takes Groningen to court, the court of arbitration, to allow him transfer to Ajax, right? So he's not holding back.
But there's an on-field issue that Ajax then.
It's the force bite.
Yeah, he bites.
This is a bit
yeah.
Otman Bakal was
Otman Bakal, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fine, because to me, like, this is, and I just want to say, Gavin, this is the one thing that when you said doing this, I said, yeah, because there's not many times you get to talk about a fella who's bitten somebody 3 times on the pitch, like not once or twice, but 3 times on the pitch, right? And this is the force of it, and you start to think to yourself, he only got too much at that stage, but he did pick up the nickname of the Cannibal of Ajax. That's before we signed him. I'm right there going, what's going on with this fella? He seems to be mad. I want to see what's going on. So yeah, for me, that's where I'm sort of, when somebody grabs your attention, you're sort of keeping an eye on the results, and you're going, well, there's he scoring again. He's bitten someone. What's this about? This is after.
And the signing of him by Liverpool actually suits him down to the ground. And what I mean by that is, it was a bit of a madness, and he seemed a bit of a madness, because he signs in, I want to say, January 2011 for Liverpool.
January 2011.
And it's around the time where Hodgson has just gone. Dalglish has come in. We have Torres. We're looking to sign Suarez to play with Torres. Torres decides he's going to go, so it's a fucking madhouse at the time. Suarez
4 days of madness.
Yeah, but Suarez turns up, and like that, when he turns up, most Liverpool fans, I'm going to speak on my behalf, I didn't see any of them. All I seen was at the World Cup, and like that, a bit of a madman playing, handballing on the line. Ghana missed a penalty, he's jumping around the place, and I was like, he will suit me down to the ground, this fella. Because at the time, Liverpool felt like, we aren't going to challenge, but it'll be great to watch a bit of a madman. And that's where the level we were at the time. He makes his debut against a home to Stoke. He scores. I don't know how they give him the goal, because I think it's Shawcross on the line, ends up kicking it off the post and across the line. But when he comes on, he's like this little stocky fella. Doesn't look the fastest. Looks like he's carrying a bit of weight. Goes through on goal, scores, runs to the cop. He's kissing his wrist and that. He's done everything at the start. And Keith, like, just in the early part of his Liverpool career, you know, he's hitting posts everywhere. Like, he's hitting the post and crossbar everywhere. He's shown glimmers of genius, like the one away at Sunderland on the end line. Smashes by Mignolet, actually, in goal. Things like that. But he looks like...
If only we'd known.
Yeah.
But
he looks like, to me, he's a madman. He's a really good player. But does he have that killer instinct? And then it just... But we love him from the start, don't we? You know, because I want to get to the one incident where I don't like him at Liverpool. But we see from the early days that half a season, and then Dalglish goes, Rodgers comes in, you know, but we see glimpses of this fella is insane in the head, and he's insanely good footballer at times. You know, that hat-trick Kite gets, where he takes on half the United team on his own in about 6 square feet and does the whole lot of them. But we start to see what he's about, don't we? Before we get to, because I'm going to move to controversies next, but we start to see what he's all about.
When Jurgen Klopp obviously wasn't at Liverpool, but was talking about heavy metal football when he was at Borussia Dortmund. Luis Suarez was heavy metal football. He was the epitome of heavy metal football on the pitch, because from the minute he comes on against Stoke, he's involved, he's running around, he's like a blue arse fly running around. As you say, the ball is bobbling, it's hitting off him very quickly, and that will endear you to a crowd like Liverpool. You know, if you're a player that will go and it'll just be all action, it will endear you. And if it looks like you've a bit about you. And at that time, obviously, we're crying out for a hero as well. Liverpool love a messiah like no other team do. And
takes the number 7 short.
Torres. Yeah, we've lost Torres, and isn't he banned when we buy him? So we have to wait to get him onto the pitch, and he comes on. And straight away, you just see something in him, and you're like, "Yeah, this fella it's bobbly, it's uncultured looking, you know, because he's not a silky South American player, you know, with the ball and doing tricks. Think of like Coutinho. When Coutinho breaks into the team, it's, you know, very precise little round the corner passes. Now Suarez is just head down and run and bobble off that, and he's going through you, whether he's going under your legs or whatever. He is going through you, and it was very different than what you'd see in the Premier League at the time. You know, it was very different than a lot of world strikers at the time. And you're looking at him, and I suppose if I look at Darwin Núñez last year, I'm sort of seeing slight parallels. And I'm hoping we see an increase in goals with Darwin Núñez. But it's that sort of chaos that's on the pitch.
Yeah, I agree with
you.
That's
unpredictability.
He feels like he's out of that skill, doesn't he? It's
you see what you say about the silky thing, right?
Yeah.
But he had, so for me, Suarez reminds me of
silk as well
of a 1950s newsreel footage of a player with skill, right? So he seems to be taken out at a different age, but plunked into the modern day with all the athleticism and physicality of the modern day players, but with an ability to make the most perfect pitch look like an absolute war zone, right? And like literally, it looked like there was more bumps and chunkets and everything going out of the pitch, because when he dribbled, the ball seemed to be bouncing all the time. If you go back and watch it, there's never a clean dribble. There's no silk in his genius, right?
Yeah.
There's genius. There is incredible skill, incredible brilliance, right? But there's no silk. He's like he's the iron maker. He's the metal fabricator, right? When everyone else is a fashion designer, he's out there making cranes. Do you know what I mean? But he's brilliant at making cranes, and it's like it's just
best crane maker in the world.
Best crane maker in the world. Nobody's ever made a crane like it, right? And it's beautiful when you see the crane, but at the same time, you turn around and say, "I thought we were buying jeans. No, I want the crane. I want the crane now." Do you know what I mean? It's just
the thing about when he dribbled was, and I remember always saying it when we watched him at Liverpool, was people think he doesn't know what he's doing with this. But he 100% knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And because if you're looking at him and you're thinking, does he know what he's doing? You haven't a fucking clue what he's doing. And defenders didn't. Like Paul Giovanni says there, and I wanted to bring it up later, but I'm going to do it now. He says when he started building the ball of players' hands just to get penalties. Absolute menace. He does it to one of those curly-headed twins of United, right? At Old Trafford. Where he literally makes sure he controls the ball into this fella's hands and then demands a second yellow card. He wants this fella sent off. Yeah. He does it to James Tompkins, I think it is, at West Ham in the run-in that season, where the ball comes over the top, he takes it down, And he knows he's not going to go buy this fella. He's no interest in going buy him. I'm just going to flick it up here. You're going to handball it, and we're going to score a penalty. Simple as that.
The only thing, Gav, James Tompkins was his kryptonite.
No, it wasn't James.
No, it wasn't James
Tompkins.
Tompkins. It was the red-headed fella,
wasn't it?
The red-headed fella.
James Collins.
Yeah,
James Collins is absolute. Whatever he had, right? He should have bottled it and sold it to every team in the league, because whatever it was, Suarez gave up. It was the only time you'd see him give up in a game. Was going, I'm not going to get it. Is he not injured?
Well, come here. The controversies, right?
Surprised he didn't buy him.
So the controversies. Somebody says there, Brian says, his favourite Suarez moments when they're all kicked off at Anfield, and I think this is part of this first controversy against United, and he pulled Raphael by the hair, and Raphael went mad. And he just done it like, come here, you know, but the controversies, he's done for racially abusing Patrice Evra. He bites
3 people, Chiellini, Otman Bakal, and
Branislav
Ivanovic. So just taking the one out of Ajax, right? We have the thing with Evra. You have the bite on Ivanovic, which, funny enough, he bites him, right? And stays on the pitch and then assists Sturridge to score in a 2-2 draw, right? Chiellini in the World Cup, where he bites him and then pretends like, this fella's ran into me. This fella's ran into my open mouth, right? The whole thing with Patrice Evra, you know, was mental, and the follow on from it, where he won't shake his hand at Old Trafford. He didn't give 2 fucks whether he was right, whether he was wrong. He didn't. He was. I've done it. I'll stand up to it. No problem.
Do you remember he gave the finger to the Fulham fans as well?
Yeah, and I remember him going to Stoke. Amazing. I remember him going to Stoke, and it was a League Cup game, and they were throwing awful abuse at him. And I think Stoke might, I don't know if Stoke went 1-0 up, but anyway, he scores 2 fucking unbelievable goals. One, he curls into the top corner, and another a header. And he's just running around Stoke. He's running around with Daniel laughing his head off at these people because they were abusing him. When he turns back up after his ban after Everett, I think he misses the first 5 games of that next season. Or maybe it was the Ivanovic one. And they're away at Sunderland, and they're throwing all sorts of abuse from him. And within about 5 minutes, he's tapping in at the back post, and he's like, "Who gives a bollocks?" He's assisting, and he actually scores 33 goals in 33 games. I think league goals that season.
But he was bold about it. He doesn't care, right? Like, if you think about all the stuff we're talking about, right? He had an excuse. Even when he saves the penalty, saves the shot in the World Cup, right? He turns around and says, "The hand of God belongs to me now." Like, it's not even an apology. It's like, this is just the way it is.
I've just got one up. I've just got one up on thing, but the controversies are mainly at Liverpool. He goes to Barcelona, and he's fucking brilliant at Barcelona. He goes with Atletico, wins a league with them after being told by Barcelona he can't leave. So, like, he's brilliant at those. He goes off in Nacional, Gremio now, and, you know, he's still scoring some absolutely brilliant goals. But centering around Liverpool, like...
But Gav, if you're going to say the controversial side, don't forget his interview pleading to be released from his contract at Liverpool.
Well, this is the one I wanted to get to in a minute, because it's right. Let me get to that in a minute. But like, when you look at a fella that arrives in Liverpool in January 2011, leaves in the summer of 2014, so he's only there 3 years. Just over 3.5 years, right? I think it's about 3 years. Yeah. So in that time, he gets done for racial abuse of Patrice Evra. I don't know how many games he gets for that. It might be 4 or 5.
10.
I'm not 8 or 10 or something.
Was it 10 he got? And then he gets Ivanovic. I can't remember how many games he gets for that either. But I have a feeling that might be about 7. Yeah, because he misses the last 2 games of one season and 5 the next season. Because it's the season Sturridge, 13-14. Sturridge scores the first 3 games, 1-0 wins against Stoke, Villa and United. Sturridge scores in them all. And then we win. Then we go to Sunderland, and he's back on the 5th game, I'm nearly sure. Or the 6th game. But you have that, right? And then we go very close to the title, 13-14. He goes after the World Cup, and people are like, are we keeping this squad together? And the minute he chews on Chiellini, we're like, not a fucking hope. This is over.
He's not coming back.
I mean? Like, he's literally fucking winking at the Barcelona reps in the ground, going, I've sorted that for you. Get in there and sort that bit out. And we let him go for 75 million, which now seems like an absolute travesty. But there's so much controversy in such a small 3.5 year period.
You forget
18 games, I think. Someone said he missed.
It's a great point. Like the brevity of his stay at Liverpool, and you consider the amount of games he's missed.
I don't think he misses a game he's injured.
Never for injury.
No, he misses 18 games for Liverpool enforced, and I think they're all for bans.
Yeah. Now, it's one of them. If he was on any other team, you'd fucking hate him, and I can understand why other teams hated him, and I can understand, the Patrice everything. We won't go into the ins and outs of that one, but he done it, and the thing about him, we touched on there, did not give a shit, and that's the thing about Luis Suarez. He's a vindictive little bastard. You said about going to Atletico Madrid after Barcelona played and drummed about the gap as well there, and you can tell he wants to win that league for Atletico just to fucking stick it to Barcelona.
Brian O'Halloran says he arrives at Barcelona suspended as well. Like he arrives there suspended.
But the thing about it is, right, we haven't touched on the everything, right, because of all the things, that's probably the darkest moment. All the other stuff, there's an element of comedy in all the other stuff that goes on, right? And to this day, like, I remember, now you look back and it's quite embarrassing about. So there's a couple of things that have always sort of drum me up about this, right? Because the club itself could have got him off with any of the stuff. If you look at what Terry was able to get away with at Chelsea, with Ferdinand, not Rio Ferdinand, the other Ferdinand, his brother, Anton Ferdinand, right? And was able to get away with it when it was like quite clear there was something had gone on there, right? We turned up at Lionel Hutz into that inquiry that was going on and just hadn't a breeze, right? But that was back in the comedy and madness days that was there, right? So like there was, you couldn't rely on sort of capability being there at the club. The T-shirts were embarrassing, because if that goes wrong, you just end up with egg in your face, and it's just all wrong. And then ultimately, once it's decided that that there's guilt and stuff like that, it's probably the darkest moment in Suarez's whole thing. The reaction was I still to this day think the reaction by the journalists and all is as disgusting in terms of what they're trying to drum up. There was no, again, with what was trying to be sold at the time, because the paper still sold. It was all about controversy and people buying papers. That was truly there. But if there was one thing you could take back, it's how that whole matter was handled and how much better it would be handled today with the current regime that are in place in the club. It wouldn't have got to the state that it was. So that's the one bit that when you look back on his career in terms of controversies, every other part of the controversies we're talking about has an element of comedy to them, has an element of madness that you can live with, right? This was the one thing that I think was out of order, right, in terms of what was there. And there is that level of hate that then exists between the two clubs and the two players, which just feeds on the rivalry that exists between the two clubs and whatever goes on that's there. And it does lead to some absolutely hilarious moments in Old Trafford after all the bans and everything goes on and they have to play each other and there's the no handshake and then there's the more that goes on. I think we lose in the game that day, but he scores in Old Trafford and it's it's mayhem.
Everyone runs over and celebrates in front of him at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So,
is he biting a hand or something as well? Is he biting a hand, a fake hand?
Yeah, he's biting. It was all sorts. Yeah. There was bits of stuff everywhere. There was limbs everywhere. But like you said, that the racist thing, to be honest with you at the time, going on the evidence that was shown, or supposed evidence that was shown, he admits that he says the word that he says, right? And I do remember people being called as witnesses. I think Dirk Kuyt said, at the time it was said, and there was, I've heard it before on a pitch, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's like, no. The T-shirts were mental. He gets the ban. And, the club should have went to one or two ways with this. One, back him properly. And like you said, you get him off, right?
But you were up against Ferguson, you have to remember.
I understand that, but the club. But I agree with Phil. I agree with Phil. The way the club handled it, both in the way they defended him and the way they had T-shirts on, was fucking insane.
But is that down to Kenny?
Yeah, but it's still wrong. It's still wrong. The other stuff is just insane because if you watch the footage of him and Ivanovic, right, there's no reason for him to do this. There is no reason whatsoever, right?
Even the kid Chiellini one, it makes no sense.
Right, the Chiellini one, he's looking at a ball coming over his shoulder to try to get onto, and instead of going for the ball, just turns starts chewing on Chiellini. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, as Phil said, the comedy element is there because he's claiming that he gets hit in the teeth. You know what I mean?
You know,
like,
well, that's the thing, and he's pointing at the ref, going, "Look, he's at the running into me mouth." You know, the sort of way, absolute madness. But the one black mark, well, apart from the racial stuff and all that, right? The one black mark in a footballing sense between him and Liverpool Football Club is definitely the summer of 2014 for me, because he wants to go. Arsenal believe he has a buyout clause of 40 million, and
he does.
Right. Well, he supposedly does. Arsenal bid 40 million and £1, and Liverpool just go, no. Right. So Suarez decides, fuck this, and he ends up in the Telegraph, I think, with like a 4-page, like it's like a little booklet you
spread.
get. It's like a spread you get on a Sunday, you know, a special. Yeah. Like a Neville Maguire special on a Sunday in the Tribune or something. And Suarez is in there like, I'm training on my own. You know, I want to go. They've lied to me, blah, blah, blah. And this, that. I didn't like that from him. You know, if he wanted to go, he should have just kept his mouth shut. And he probably, I don't know if he'd have got the move. But then, lads, 13, 14, it would have been easy for him to turn up and go, I have a back injury, I'm not playing. He doesn't. He's living out his ban. He comes back. And he absolutely pulls the Premier League asunder from start to finish. Keith, go where you want with this, because there's so many goals. Like, people are banging on about Norwich here, you know, Cardiff away. He just pulls the place asunder. Gets made captain, goes to White Hart Lane, bashes Spurs 5-1. Like, he was just insane. It's the best season I've ever seen from a player.
Wait,
and I include Salah's
Premier League. Yeah, I was about to say
and I include Salah's 44 in that.
And you can include Erling Haaland this year, because I can't remember a single fucking goal he scored. Do you know what I mean? Now, I know I'm not watching Man City, blah, blah. And Mo Salah, for sheer volume of goals, unbelievable. But what Luis Suarez done that year, because, he does want out of Liverpool. Do you know? And we were shy as well. I suppose you have to take that into consideration. He comes in, thinks he's playing with one fella. He's playing with a big bleeding donkey then who's never there. And it's not what he signs up for. He's trying to get out. I thought John Henry was great. Yeah, no. There's a release clause. Yeah, we're not releasing him. Because it's Pep Guardiola, going back to that, it's Pep Guardiola's brother was his agent, wasn't he? Pep Guardiola was Suarez's agent. And I think what he said was, the release clause in England isn't what it is in Spain. You know, in Spain, legally, they all have to have a release clause. And if you pay that to the league, you release the player. It's nothing to do with the clubs. In England, it's not that. It's just, look, meet this price and we'll give it a gentleman's agreement that will allow you to move. Gentleman's agreement isn't worth the paper it's fucking written on. So I thought Liverpool were great in that sense. But he wants out, and you're looking at him and you're like, right, is the juice worth the squeeze with this fella? Because you're seeing glimpses of him and he's brilliant the year before and all that.
Now, while this bid is in, he's banned.
Yeah, of course he's
banned.
He's fucking banned.
You know what I mean? So it would have been easy for Liverpool to go, no, listen, get rid of this fella. He's fucking costing us. He's 18 games he's being banned for. Do you know what I mean? But he stays.
He stays, and Rodgers makes him train with the reserves, doesn't he? Rodgers banishes
on his own
to the reserves, or on his own, and he comes
God
back
knows what happened when he was there. He's probably biting lads all over the shop, and they just give up, bring him back,
and all
just
that.
We're not training with him.
But it's funny because something that we touched on there, and I know we want to talk about the 13-14 season, but you know, Suarez goes and trains with I think he does train with the 18s, does he, or on his own?
Originally he's on his own, because when he does the article, I think it was in the Telegraph, it's like, I'm on my own training, blah 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 blah, and he might have ended up training with 18s or 21s or whatever it was at the time. It wasn't 23s at the time, and then he's just back. Then it just comes out that he's staying.
But the comparison I'm going to give is, if you think of somebody like Mario Balotelli at Man City, and when Balotelli was getting bored, remember, he's throwing darts at playing youth team players. He's putting out, I'm not putting out, that's Joey Barton. He's causing murder when he's not in the team. But you know what I mean? Like, he's a disruptive influence, and his career always stalled because of that. Luis Suarez is out on it's not a ban. Well, it is a ban. He's banished to the stiffs.
No, he's banned. He's serving a ban for Ivanovic when all this is going on.
Is he?
Yeah, because he missed the first 5 games of the season through
yeah,
a
but he's
ban.
banished to the. But was that all right? Well, fair enough. But he's banished in anyway.
That's
to the
Sterling
team.
and Sterling and Sturridge open up the season on fire, and we're there going, "How? What does it really matter?" And then it's like, "Oh yeah,
Don't need him.
No, it does. When this fella comes up, it really does.
But every from his first. When he starts out on Nacional, he moves into Holland. And the reason he wants to go is because his girlfriend moves to Spain at a young age, and he's like, right, my end game is I'm getting over the whole. So he moves to Europe very young, blah, blah, goes through all that. But every knock he's had, every single time, he's got better and better and better. There's never been a period in his career when he's declined. Or he's 36 or something now, whatever he is, and he's still playing well. Do you know what I mean? Like, some players, when they get a knock like this, they're gone. They crumble. Luis Suarez just brushes it off and he comes back. So he comes into that season on the back of a second biting, man. Like, that's fucking madness. He bit 2 players, like, and he's coming back into and he's tried to leave. And usually with Liverpool, that's it. He's fucking dead to us. He comes in and he's just, I think it's the best individual season I've seen.
So do I.
Premier League,
because he's scoring goals, he's assisting, he's hunting teams down. He's just like stuff. He's scoring headers from outside the box. Yeah. You know, and I always remember this. I'm nearly 100% sure it's Sunderland he returns against, and I think he scores the first goal there because I think it's a big switch from Gerrard to Sturridge on the right hand side. Runs the defence, crosses, he scores. And then I think he might score one near the end, where Sturridge is a lovely reverse by Sturridge, and he passes it across the goal, and he runs to Liverpool fans, and they're just, this is fucking mental, like, because, and Kev said it, I think it might have been a conversation with Gerrard that he ended up having, and Gerrard like went, look, just stay and see how this goes, and he ends up staying. But Phil, like, there's so many moments in that season, you know, like I mentioned already, Norwich, Cardiff away. He nutmegs a fella at home to West Brom. Your man,
Jonas Olsen, was it?
Yeah, and he just nutmegs him and smashes her in the bottom corner without even anyone blinking. And Phil, it was as
the
much
half volley
season,
goal in that West Brom game as well, where he sort of flicks it around the side and comes around and just catches it in the half volley, and the ball it's like slow motion, like really aggressive slow motion, where you're just watching. There's no movement. The ball just goes dead and just flies through the air and goes into the side.
But the thing is, like, Phil, we remember that season fondly. We probably should have won the league, right? But genuinely, it's not hard. Like, you know, when you nearly win a league, I don't want to go back and watch that. But you do want to go back and watch this fella because it was off the fucking scale brilliance. It was. There was no other word.
There's so many moments, but the standout moment for me remains the header from 150 yards against Arsenal that doesn't go in, and Kolo Toure misses a tap.
The volley.
The volley, off the corner. And then there's the header from like 4,000 yards where he used sensible world of soccer from
the header is away to West Brom or home to West Brom. And in the same game, I'm nearly sure in the same game, he just gets the ball, turns, nutmegs a fella. And before it's through your man's legs, he's smashing it in the bottom corner. It was insane.
He scores 4 against Norwich twice. That's ridiculous. It's like, it's Norwich were just having nightmares about
therapy. But say John Ruddy's still having therapy about him.
That goal from the halfway line where Gerrard's giving out stink to him, like Gerrard's going to kill him, and he just pings it into. All right, grand, then fair enough. I'll let you get away with that one. You did right. Well, fair play to you. Okay. So keep mentioning it, right? He has such a short spell at the club, and he scores so many goals in 2 seasons. Like he hits
69 goals in 110 games. He got.
In the league, and I think it's
something like 83 altogether because him and Suarez or Torres are very, very similar on the amount he score
in less than 150 games, right? And when people ask me how can you pick him like over somebody, I'm like, look, Michael Owen, who was held until these lads started to appear as this amazing Liverpool legend and stuff like that, was there for 8 years from 96 to 2004 and managed to score, I think it's like 200 goals in total. This fella was doing it in three seasons in on the rate that he's on the Mo Salah rate. You know what I mean? Like in that length of time, he was going to score.
He ends up with 83 or 84 goals.
82 goals in 133 games.
Yeah,
that's what. So his rate is ridiculous. And those last 2 seasons, the uptick in what he produces in the Brendan Rodgers team when he's part of that 3-man up top from the moment Coutinho and Sturridge arrived in the January in the middle of that 4 season with Rodgers, right the way through to the end of 13-14, that is just, we talk about the three lads in Firmino, Mane and Salah now in terms of what it was, but watching that football, watching that team, there wasn't much going on behind them. I hate saying this, but there wasn't much going on behind them. All the problems were behind those three.
It was mad in defence and hard work in the midfield. That's what it was.
Yeah. It was like if they, and the mad thing was, if Henderson wasn't in that team, the whole thing just fell apart because there's no legs. There's no legs outside of the two lads that were outside.
It's actually a very similar side to what you see in Liverpool for me. 18, 19, 19, 20. What I mean by that is the midfield just done its job, and these three boys ran amok. Coutinho involved there as well. Whereas the difference in those two teams, whereas we end up bringing in Van Dijk, but in the other team we're sitting there with Torre, Skrtel, Agger. Do you know the sort of way?
Random.
And it was that's like, honestly, the excitement in football we played in 13-14 was great, but I don't think it'll come close to anything else if Suarez isn't there, because I just think everything about him is manic. Like we talk about, like you said, Keith, earlier, Darwin Núñez causing mayhem and there's a bit of chaos about him, and I love that about him, but I think he needs to adapt, and I'd love to see him adapt in the way Suarez did going into the 11-12 season, where he's starting to score goals rather than hit posts and stuff like that, and I want to see that. But like, honestly, the stuff he was doing, the goals he was scoring, the one away at Spurs where it comes back off a deflection, it comes into him and he looks like he's going to shoot, and the defender just goes sliding out of the screen, and he just takes a touch and puts it in the corner. Then he's put through later on and chips, man. Just you have that
the Newcastle goal against the goal, Enrique's ball down the sideline,
right? Shoulder.
The skill that's involved in that, we talk about when they think of the great Premier League moments, and they talk about Bergkamp's flick and over to the Newcastle, Albert in the defence and spinning them and coming around and scoring the volley. That goal that Suarez scores is every bit as skillful as that, because to be able to take the ball the way he does as it comes out of the sky, then throw about 19 dummies in one small movement, right? That sends lads all over the shop, and then he rolls it in. It's like it's ridiculous, and it's like that's football joy. That was the moment that brought back. Like, we'd gone through the dregs. There's also a part of this that lifts where FSG had come in and we'd heard all these promises and nothing had really appeared on the pitch. So we knew it was better off the pitch and we were signing players and blah blah blah. But this was the first time something had happened since the 08-09 season, because after 08-09 we'd gone through essentially 5 years of absolute collapse, right? 1 year of sort of rebuild,
just
half
not knowing what we were up to. Yeah.
Like, and then you have this 13-14, which kicks in from around the October time, which is I think it's after the Ivanovic boy. Is that he kicks in? He starts taking out.
No, he bites at the end of the 12-14 season.
That's what I'm saying. So he has the ban when he starts off this season.
He arrives back in early September. I'm nearly sure away at Sunderland after missing the first 4 or 5 league games of the season, because he only plays 33 league games that season, and I think he misses the first 5 because I don't think he misses another game, and I think he ends up with 33 league goals.
I think he slows down at the end of the season as well, doesn't he?
He does. There's the last 3 or 4 games, but
banging in goals that even brings the numbers closer to games and goals.
Yeah, but in fairness to him,
he was racing ahead.
He scores in the second last game of the season at Palace. Yeah. He doesn't score against Newcastle, but he doesn't score at home to City in that run-in.
Header.
I think he scores. Does he score away at Norwich? I think he might.
Does he score away at Norwich? He scores 4.
No, not in that season. Not in that season he didn't. But it was just like, if you ever, and people will, nearly all people watching this will remember Suarez in 13-14. But if you haven't, or you're too young or whatever, or it's just slipped, I don't know how it would slip your mind, but if it has, go back and type in Luis Suarez 2013-14 and just watch it unfold in front of you, because it's madness.
But I hate saying it, Gavin, and we have to touch on it, because he has a much longer spell at Barcelona than he does at Liverpool, right? And what he achieves at Barcelona surpasses everything he did, right? Yeah. And he puts himself, like, that season 13-14.
He ends up in the team he deserves to be in for me.
Yeah, but he puts his name in 13-14. He puts his name in the conversation, and rightfully so, with being at a level that's equal to Ronaldo and Messi. Right? Like, let's be honest about this.
Yeah,
this
13-14.
This is the level the fella's playing.
A bit like Salah did in 17-18, 18-19, in around that time.
And then he goes to a team that has Messi in it, and I'm waiting to say, well, how is he? He's going to be a bit part player, and it's not going to like. He's got Neymar there as well. There's only so many lights that can grab you on a pitch, right?
And at the
My
time,
God,
Messi wanted to play through the middle, if you remember.
yeah, but my God, he goes there and
explodes.
When you go back and watch the highlights of those Barcelona teams with Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, it's very hard to think of a better attacking trio on top of their game.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's the best I've seen. It's the best strike. It's the best attack I've ever seen in sort of this era. I think it's outrageous because if you look at the numbers, and even Neymar is hopping numbers out of it.
Yeah. Well, you see,
Suarez is hopping numbers out of it. Messi is getting leading at 90 goals in this calendar year and all these sort of things. Like, they're ridiculous what they're doing.
But I think
unbelievable.
I think without throwing too much praise on him, and probably be a bit of fake praise, I think he actually remodels Messi a little bit, because I think Messi, we're going back 7 years ago now, are we? In around that, right? Yeah. And Messi at the time is 28-ish, right? 27, 28. And I think Messi sees himself as more of I'm going to play up front and I just want to go and hunt goals, a bit like Ronaldo did. And Messi wanted to play through the middle. And he turns up Suarez and he's playing down the right hand side, and all of a sudden Messi goes, no, hold on, this fella has to play through the middle. This fella must play through the middle because we get the best out of it. And I think it's the most productive part of Neymar's career, because Neymar isn't playing for himself and having to fall on the ground all the time. He knows, just get it to Suarez or Messi and I'll probably get it back and score. And the three of them, the chemistry between the three of them was just off the charts. Like, you couldn't stop them. You could not stop them. They had the pace, they had the physicality, the intelligence, the vision, and every one of them could finish. All three could finish. Like, when you look at Liverpool's best three or anyone's three, you go, he's really fast, he's good in the air, that fella's a real finisher. These could all do it. And they were frighteningly good. And I think he deserved, although we didn't want him going to Barcelona, he probably ends up in a team he deserved to be at, right in the middle of his peak.
Yeah. Because his trophy haul at Liverpool, he only wins the League Cup. Do you know what I mean? And this fella, it's right. Liverpool aren't a great side when he comes into the team. Rodgers, whatever you think of Rodgers, that 13-14 season, he looks like he's after getting the Midas touch out. But the reality is, it was all down to Suarez. And, that's not to diminish the role of Sturridge, Sterling, Coutinho. They were all excellent with him. But you're right, if you don't have Suarez in that team, no party. He goes in there then to Barcelona, and it's a team that are winning leagues. And people will say, oh yeah, it's not impressive going to Barcelona with Messi. He's the third all-time goal scorer in Barca's history. Like, the numbers he does is fucking scandalous there. But I'm looking at it here.
Outrageous.
He got in the 14-15 season, he only plays 43 games in total, only gets 25 goals, but he's banned from the start of that. 15-16, right? He plays in the league.
He gets like 60
games.
Goals, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gets in the league. He plays 35 games, gets 40 goals, and in all comps he plays 53 and scores 59. 59 goals in a fucking season. Do you know what I mean? Like,
59 goals. Yeah. I know we talked about
Messi got a rake as well. Then, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he took on the blade and took the slack.
He goes to Barcelona. He's in his absolute element there. He's at his final destination. Like you said, he's young. His wife or girlfriend at the time moves to Spain, and he ends up there. And he's in his absolute element. He goes to Atletico after all the issues at Barcelona. They decide not to keep him. He goes to Atleti. He wins the league at Atleti. Like, it's not like he turns up there and goes, I'll get me a few quid here, my last couple of years in Spain, and I'm out of here. He wins the fucking league with them. You know what I mean? And he's
Messi only got 41 goals that season, just pointing out, right? Messi only got 41 that season.
41.
Yeah.
And Neymar got 31. Now think about this for a second, right? One fella got 59 goals, another fella got 41 goals, and another fella that played up front got 31 goals.
So it's 131 goals between them.
What's going on there? Like if you're not talking about that one season, because they win the treble that year in terms of what's there, right? If you're not talking about that one season and the contribution those three produce to get there, right? You're never going to think of the fellas that were playing behind him. And this goes back to, we talked about Suarez, Sturridge, and Sterling in terms of the three S's that we had, right? And we have what's up until then our best attacking season we could ever remember in modern history. And then he goes there and he surpasses that with two other fellas who's the best player we've probably ever seen.
Yeah.
One of Brazil's greatest in the last 20 years, right? And he's arguably the greatest Uruguayan player that's ever played. And I'm probably there's no argument about it. He is the greatest Uruguayan player that's ever been, right? And they produce numbers. Normally that never happens. Normally you get three, and then something happens that one doesn't tick, right? These lads click, and it's like it's unbelievable. I hate Neymar for going to PSG, right? Because it's like they should have more Champions Leagues off the back of. He shouldn't have gone. It's like, do you know what I mean? Sometimes when you're part of the best group in the world, right? Going solo just wrecks it for everyone, and he wrecked it for everyone. Right? I hate, and that's. And for every other reason, I hate Neymar. That's something that's gone top of the list. I hadn't thought about this before. That's gone top of my list now.
Oh my God, Phil's gonna just go on a mad from Neymar hating. But Laszlo says his football brain was elite. Yeah. You can't improvise the finishes he did and beat players for fun without a serious football IQ. So that's where I want to finish on this. And we finish this out. Where does he rank in this era's number 9s? And when I say this era, I'm probably talking from the 90s onwards, this era. Keith, where does he rank as number 9?
I think he's the most underrated elite footballer of this period. I'm going to put Ronaldo ahead of him, Brazilian Ronaldo.
Yeah. But
when you do that, you're doing that on the early years of his career before his knee injury. Now, I know, am I gone again?
No,
you're still there. We're still listening to you. Still love you.
No, he's gone.
He's gone.
Go on. I'll ask him now in a minute. Where does he rank, Phil, for you? Number 9s in the last 30 years.
Where do I think he should rank, or where does he rank for me?
Where does he rank for you?
In terms of, see, I don't regard him as a central forward. I think he's the prototype of he liked to drift wide and come in. It's a bit like the way Salah likes to be wide and come in, right? Okay. But in terms of forwards, because I don't think, again, this three up top has removed the wingers and wide forwards. It's just the forwards, right?
Yeah.
And for me, he is. I think in the last 20 years, he's top 5. It's very hard, and I'll give him a 5. Like Messi's there at number 1.
Oh, you're going forwards, okay?
Yeah, well,
just the forwards across that forward line on which he.
Yeah. Messi's there at 1. Ronaldo's there too, and you have to say Cristiano Ronaldo for the numbers he puts up, right, in terms of what he was, and he played across the 3 that was there, and then you're into conjecture. This is where the debate goes, right? Because I think Suarez on numbers alone has a very strong argument to be number 3 in that list, right?
Yeah, I do. I think he is.
But you've also got to pay the respect to Benzema, because his longevity that he's had at Real Madrid, and
Lewandowski maybe.
Lewandowski, and the other fellow I give it is Salah. If you look at those 6,
well, if you're not going pure number 9, Salah is without doubt in there. Without doubt.
Now, if you're going
Wayne Rooney as well, like
but if you're going to go back to the early 90s, you have to put Van Basten in there. You know what I mean? Van Basten was a joke.
Yeah, but Van Basten's more or less retired very early. Do you know what I mean? You're going back to the 80s if you're bringing
no, I don't think so.
You said 20. You said the last 20 years, which.
Oh, right. But in the last 20 years, then
that's 2003 onwards.
The 24th century.
Right.
So from 2000 onwards, let's go.
So the only one that you could potentially throw in that. No, see, where is. Are you going to go with Torres? Torres' career is ruined after 3 seasons at Liverpool. And let's be honest about it, it's completely ruined. He has 2 incredible seasons, and after that, it falls off in terms of what's there. Who else? You've got Lewandowski.
Samuel Eto'o would be players that would be in the mix, but he's better than them.
Yeah.
They're not on his fucking level. Even Benzema, I don't think, is on his level at Lewandowski. I think he's cleared of them all. Like, I think in the last 20 years, Jesus Christ, I don't think anyone comes closer than Ronaldo and Messi, to be totally honest.
Some lads are saying Henry.
Yeah, Henry. Yeah, but you see, the thing is, I think there's two arguments here. I know where you're coming from. If you're picking forward lines, you could definitely look at Henry. You could definitely look around Ruud van Nistelrooy if you're coming from 2000 onwards. You could definitely look at Lewandowski or Messi, Salah. But in my mind, Luis Suarez is a centre forward. Right? He's a centre forward. Bang, he's a centre forward. And centre forwards wise in the last 20 years, just down the middle, because I don't consider Henry a centre forward. Down the middle, centre forwards, I think he's 100% in the top 3. And I'd argue you'd probably only put Ronaldo in front of him. And I mean Brazilian Ronaldo when I say that. After that, the goals, the numbers, the different clubs he does it at, even the controversy adds to his value for me because he just keeps coming back from this stuff and keeps doing it.
He's a baddie. You know what I mean? He's
I'd have him as a centre forward in the last 20 years. For me, he's 100% in the top three. 100%.
Centre forward. Who's ahead of him?
Ronaldo's ahead of him.
In the last 20 years?
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
I'd put him ahead of... Which Brazilian Ronaldo?
Brazilian Ronaldo, yeah.
No.
I'd put him ahead of him.
No.
I would, yeah.
I'd put him ahead of him. I think Brazilian Ronaldo in the 90s was phenomenal. He was the phenomenon. He comes back and he's excellent, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But I think the thing with Brazilian Ronaldo is you base it on he was brilliant after the injury, but what he would have been before it. I think if we're cutting off at 20 years, so I'd give you Ronaldo then, maybe. Who else?
Well, I would have had R9 as the best in the last. When I say
who else?
I would have. I don't think. I think you have to look at Cristiano Ronaldo as well, because Cristiano Ronaldo, when he leaves United, he ends up as a centre forward very quickly at Real Madrid, and his numbers are fucking off the charts.
No, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is the ultimate number 9 that we've seen in the last 20 years, and people can disagree with me in here because of who he is and stuff like that. But if you want to look at a fella who just dominated the position, which he did once he goes to Real Madrid, you could say he doesn't exist pre-Real Madrid and just look at his Real Madrid numbers, and that puts him in the bracket that says he's the best centre forward.
Because I think he goes to Real Madrid in 2009, and within a year and a half he's their centre forward. He's no interest in running wings.
He's
anymore.
not playing wide. He's not playing wide. Or if he is, it's only the odd time he's going to do.
He's not interested in running the wings anymore. He realises that
he's positioning himself central.
He's 6'1", 6'2". He's brilliant in the air. He has pace to get in behind. He has a knack for scoring goals. He's a really good finisher. Fuck this. Why am I standing out wide? And Real Madrid love signing wide players. Bale shows up, all this sort of stuff. And Ronaldo goes, I'll just go in there and I'll just score a fucking bag load. And he did. And I think the two Ronaldos, if you're not letting me have an R9, I still think Cristiano Ronaldo as goal scoring in the last 20 years he's ridiculous. And I think
some people have mentioned David Villa, Zlatan, Aguero, right?
Paul Giovanni,
I will counter that and say none of them have the productivity. If you take away Cristiano Ronaldo, none of them have the productivity across teams and leagues in the same way Luis Suarez does, and has that vindictiveness in the productivity, right? So he's replicated what he'd done at Ajax, to Liverpool, to Barcelona, to Atletico Madrid, and through those times, he maintains a standard that sits at a certain level that can't be compared. And that's where I would argue back in terms of when you're looking at these. For me, it's Benzema and Lewandowski is the ones that you have, the three that you have to have the conversation with, because Lewandowski has done it at multiple clubs and continues to keep that same threshold in terms of what's there.
I think
he's a better footballer than he's given.
I think Lewandowski will be further up in the chart in my head if he'd have left Bayern Munich a little bit earlier. Maybe, and went to Barcelona earlier, or England earlier, or something, or went to Italy and tried it. But he does everything he can at Bayern and heads off to Barca, and he's seen out his career. I think if Lewandowski goes to, say, anywhere in maybe 2015, 16, 17, you'd be kind of going, yeah, he's gone there at 28, 29, and he's fucking looking like, you know what I mean? It's a joke. But
just on the other side of it, Gav, Suarez remains my favourite Liverpool player of all time.
Yeah.
John Barnes is my favourite Liverpool player of all time.
I think Salah is the best, followed by Barnes, and then, but my favourite player for what he did on the pitch, right, to the comedy he gave me off the pitch, to the edginess and the, like, you mentioned the chaos. Like, Darwin Núñez is a poor impression of the chaos that Luis Suarez brought to a football pitch, because you didn't know if you were getting 4 goals or a bite or who knows what, right? Like, you didn't know, and it could all happen in the same game. And the best thing is, no matter what happened, it didn't affect him. He'd come back 20 games later after being banned, and he'd score a hat-trick, and he'd laugh and he'd wave at everyone, and everyone would love him because he'd give him a big smile.
Yeah, that's what the
Don't forget, at the end of 2013-14, after everything that was written, he's voted Football Writers Player of the Year, the Premier League Player of the Year, right? And he also wins the European Boot. This is a year removed from racism, biting lads, right? Being banned at the start of the season for biting fellas, being hounded by the English press to get out, destroying England then at the World Cup. They don't know, and to this day, they still don't know how to manage Luis Suarez when it comes to writing who he is and what he represents to the game of football.
I think he's so hard to talk about. Other than just from what you've seen. Other than that, who knows what about him? Jerry says Suarez is my favourite Liverpool player, and to be honest, the best individual I've seen too by a hair over Gerrard. It'll always be John Barnes for me, unless someone. But I adore what Luis Suarez done at Liverpool. I loved what Fernando Torres done at Liverpool. Gerrard goes without saying, and I think Salah right now we're living in an era where when Salah finishes up, you're kind of going. It's a bit like when Carragher gets gets close to the appearance record, and you're kind of going, no one's getting near that again. And that's what Salah feels like to me. Nobody's getting near this again because he's off the charts, Salah is. But Luis Suarez, what a career. From goals, assists, handballs, bites, racism, all sorts, going from this club to that club and still turning around. And I still think my favourite bit of the whole lot is when he goes with Atletico Madrid, wins the league, and has no problem letting Barcelona know about it. Because even though he's been brilliant at Barca, he's like, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Goes back to Anfield. On his way back to Anfield, he's dropped off in the summer to say hello to Klopp and have a crack and a bit of chat, goes to the Champions League, and basically is an absolute bollocks. While riles every Liverpool fan that exists in Anfield up that night, right? People going bananas over him. And I'm sitting there breaking my heart laughing, going, lads, you cannot cry about a fella that when he did it to everyone else, you literally stood up, clapped, and made songs about him and cheered him on. Yeah. This is what he is. This is what he's about. And this is why he is the phenomenon that he's going to be. And also, when he turns up into Miami and plays with Messi after pretending to retire, right, in WWE fashion, because it's the only way it's going to do. Let's not forget that Phil Neville is managing him. What's going on?
He got the bullet.
He's gone. Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone.
That would have been amazing, though. It would have been amazing.
Do you reckon he's still... Oh my God, Gav, do you reckon he's still turning up like Brian Robson when Terry Venables turned up?
No. I don't think he's going to turn up and go, no, go on, look, just listen to this fella here, but I'm really in charge, lads. like the Miami version of The Office, for fuck's sake.
Well, you look at, before we do finish, you look at him, right? So he wins the league with Atletico when he goes there. Then he wins the league at Nacional when he goes back. He only goes back for a few months to get them over the line. I don't think they're winning anything at Gremio. But he's still putting in goals. He scored a bleeding beaut there last week.
Outside the field. It's ridiculous.
He's a magician.
He's going to love it in Miami. He's going to absolutely love it.
Great time with Messi and Busquets. Busquets is gone as well. Yeah, they're all getting the band back together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would be amazed if that fella if we don't see it in some type of paper interview, 4-page spread in the Telegraph or something soon, where a bit like Batistuta, he's actually saying that he can't walk with the pain anymore. Because to your point, he's never injured. He's like Salah. He's never injured.
No, never
injured. These fellas are lined up for knee replacements, and guarantee you at the age of about 38, because
knee, hips, everything.
They play every minute. They never get injured, and they play at a pace and a pounding on the body that isn't natural to anyone else or any other team that goes on, because you don't see it anywhere. I'm amazed he's still able to walk.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because people are talking about Zlatan and Zlatan playing till he's 41, but like Ryan Giggs, more so than Ryan Giggs. Ryan Giggs sort of retired at about 33 and played the occasional game for the last 7 years. Zlatan sort of was active, but he doesn't play like Suarez. Nobody plays like Suarez.
No,
Suarez plays like he's on the bleeding street still, and he's just kicking lumps out, and he's putting his body on the line, and he's just phenomenal.
I think
he's outrageous.
I think it's definitely a watch this space. I genuinely do, because I would 100%. I'd 100% back the notion that he's going to say to Gremio, lads, I can't do it anymore, and then he just rocks up in Miami 2 weeks later. It just has to be. I
was just here on holidays.
It's the perfect finish. It's the perfect finish, and he's playing for Miami, and Gremio are ringing and going, I thought your thing was full. I'm only giving them
still contracted with them. Still contracted with Gremio playing for Miami.
I'm going to give them a dig out, lads.
Bigamist, is it when you marry someone else?
Yeah. He doesn't give a fuck. It'll be the perfect ending to what was just a manic career. Look, do you know what he's going to do?
You know what he's going to do? He's going to use the Italian passport he was trying to get to move to Juventus. We never even talked about this, of Controversies. It's going back into my head, right? Do you remember he was faking his European ancestry, so he could get an Italian passport, so he could be classed as a homegrown player at Juventus for a move that didn't come off. It's literally just come back to me in my head.
He's fucking great, isn't he? He's absolutely great. But look, I've really enjoyed that. We've an hour and 10-ish minutes with Phil and Keith. Link is in the description for our charity. We're only 3,000 short of our 20,000 target, so if you can, donate via the link. If not, copy the link. Friends, family, colleagues, canteens and work. Phil might stick it to the back of his bike when he's driving around, and people might donate wherever it might be.
Stick it on the back of our jerseys.
Yeah, we need to get to this 20 grand. We won't stop until we will. And thanks a million for everyone that helped us so far. But this is the final push now for the women running the Dublin Marathon later on this year. Rest of the week, I'm on tomorrow night. Thursday night, Kev and Keith are going. No, not Kev and Keith. Kev and Chris are going through some classic Liverpool games. They've had some belters over the last few weeks, and I'm sure they'll have more on Thursday. We're off Friday. We're off Saturday. We'll be back Sunday. But if Liverpool signs someone on Friday or Saturday, sure, we'll be back for that as well.
Can I give a suggestion for a show?
Yeah, go on.
No, it's not that I'm going to be on it, right? But just I thought something that came into my mind when I was thinking about this today, right? It's like, and for all the hassle and abuse they're getting all the time, right? Can you think of an ownership group that isn't a sports washing body, right? That has put nearly as many legendary footballers into a club as FSG have done since 2010. I'm straight about this. This is 100% straight, right? Because when you think of the teams that have been assembled since Klopp has got in and the players that have got in there, right? And we talk about them as being all-time Liverpool greats in a relatively short period, right? Mm-hmm. Has another ownership group done the same job at any other club in the world?
Man City's, because they've no legends.
Sports washing,
100%.
Take
when you
the
say
sports,
non-sports
take
washing.
that out.
Well, maybe we can think that up, and you'll have to come on and do that.
I didn't know where you were going with it,
I'm not letting you rock in here with suggestions and go, well, by the way, lads, go on, I'll talk to you, and just leave it there. You know what I mean?
I thought that was a little wind-up one to get at the old FSG crowd, but it's actually
no.
a good
Phil
point.
has no concept
It's
of
a
the
good
FSG
point.
crowd.
No, but it's a great point, because you bring in Suarez, they bring in the current crop, they bring in one of our greatest ever managers. Like, yeah, it's a good point.
Anyway,
I think it's worth having a conversation.
Maybe we can have a think about that and throw it into a show next week if we can get Phil and he's not on his bike. Keith, anything else before we go? Because I really have to go.
Can we do another show when Suarez signs for Miami?
Yes. If Suarez signs for Miami,
correspondent.
If Suarez signs for Miami, it's just going to be us three drinking cans, laughing our fucking heads off for about an hour, right? Phil, anything else before we go?
No, I can't come on the show next week because I'm actually cycling up a volcano next week.
What days?
Basically, I'm off doing hot weather training from next Monday to the following Thursday.
Hot weather
Not going to Miami, are you?
He's throwing an extra light on in the sitting room while he's on his bike.
I'll send you a picture. I'm off up training up a volcano.
Okay, well, we get you the week after then when you're recovering.
Altitude and speed.
Okay. Right, Jerry makes a suggestion: Chelsea, Barca, Bayern, maybe so. And somebody reckons that he will turn up.
That's flawed, by the way.
Bias.
That's flawed. Yeah.
Well, there you go. We can argue it in 2 weeks.
Well, they're not exactly clean ownerships either.
The Bias one says he'll rock a Miami with a biker style beard and a new name. So yeah, he made it that as well. That has been all about El Pistolero, Luis Suarez. What a player! What a man! What a fucking lunatic! Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.